So I will make this video as short as possible because I'm going to run for the dinner before my housemate finishes it. Okay, today we are going to talk about Python functions, and it's very important topic and easy one. You're gonna like it. Hello, I'm Mehdi and this is ZomCast 18, and this is our tutorial in the series of Python tutorials. And as I said, we are going to discuss functions. Let's switch over to code and let's see what we got here. Since we are going to talk about functions, I'm going to create a new module, or before we make it special and before we explore modules in the coming weeks, let's call it just file. Okay, so Control N and I create a new file and I save it with the name of functions. Okay, functions.py. We add a small comment in the beginning of the module or file, let's say, and I add this comment that this module is an example of several functions in the series, in the Python tutorial series, in the ZomCast Python tutorial series. Okay, the first thing you need to do, you need to know about creating functions in Python is how you define them. It's very easy. You use the def keyword. This is a language keyword in Python. You define functions using def, which means define, and then you give your function a name. For example, my func. And then you open and close parentheses and then colon. What comes next in the next line is the body of your function. So whatever you want to do in your function comes here. For example, you print something. Hello from function. From function, what function? In fact, from my func. And that's it. This function will print this message. Also, note that this definition, you see that in this definition, we don't return anything. All we do is just print a message. But you don't have to do that. In fact, a lot of functions return something. So they calculate something and they return something. So you can do that. For example, I can create a function def my func or my func2, for example, and this is going to return something. For example, return hello from my func2, of course. So we have two functions and now we are going to use them. In order to use them, first I make a call to my func, and I will show you how you're calling a function in Python. Note that in order to make it easier to understand, the print function that we have and the print statement that we used from the first day of our Python tutorial was a function itself. So you don't need any specific or special knowledge about functions. You are already familiar with them and you are already using them. What we learned today is that you can easily create your own custom functions. So we have two functions and now we are going to make calls to them. I'm gonna showcase them. Print f string, calling my func. I'm calling it, and now the result is gonna be displayed by calling it. So my func, the way you call a function in Python is by specifying its name, which is very important, and then the parentheses. This is the important part. If you don't specify the parentheses, it's not going to do anything. This is very important. And also, if we want to make a call to our second function, print f calling my func2. And interestingly, it's not going to it's not going to print something. Instead, it's gonna return something. So we need to use the value that is returned by this function. We can, oh my god, some water is coming into my room. I don't know where it's coming from. Maybe it's just steam, no problem. I was just scared. So in order to use the value returning from it, since this is f string, I can add a curly braces, a pair of curly braces, and inside this curly braces, I can make a call to my func2, and don't forget to specify the parentheses, because without it, the function will not do anything. So this makes a call and returns it, and then integrates it into our string. Let's run this script and see how it works. Calling my func, hello from my func, the effect of the first function, and calling my func2, hello from my func2. You see that in the second case, we directly use the value returned by my func2 inside our string, because we knew already that this function is gonna return something, and we can use the returned value inside some expression that we did. And you can create complex functions with it. There's nothing special about functions in Python. You can use this function in any other file that you need to use them. Just make sure that you import it before using. And just a reminder, we will talk about modules and importing functions from different files in the future, so don't worry about it if you feel it's a little bit challenging, because it's not. And that's it. We created two functions. You can return something from a function, you can do some operation, you can print something in the body of your function. Something that you need to be aware of, and you shouldn't forget, is that the body of the function has some indent from the definition. So in the body of my func, for example, if I bring this a little bit to the left in the Visual Studio Code, all you need to do is press Control and left curly brace, and in fact it returns it. It takes it to the left. It takes it to the left by 1 degree by 1 indent. In fact, if you do it with Control and right bracket, it takes it to the right by the size of 1 indent. So this is very important, because Python, as you might know, works with indents and cares about indents. So the definition always comes a little bit indented to the left, and the body comes indented to the right. And if I have another statement here to print another line from my func, you need to have the same amount of indent for it. If I take it to the left, the interpreter for Python is gonna issue an error and it's not gonna work. So make sure you respect the indent rule in Python. Before I wrap up my discussion about function, let's also mention sending parameters to functions. You can send some parameters to function to work on, And this is something that makes functions even more useful. For example, we can create a function def hello, or say hello, and then send it a name. And this name, you just specify the name of the parameter, and that's it, you can use it. And then the body, what it's gonna do, it's gonna return, for example, hello name. Just says hello to that name that you passed in. And this is one way to use the parameters. But in the definition of the parameters that you pass to a function, you can also specify the type of that. For example, str, because we know that name is going to be a string. And in some cases, especially if you are creating a library for yourself or for others, it's better to specify the type of the parameters that are defined for a function, so that the developer using your functions will be able to see that hint, and to see the hint of that, the type of the parameters that the function accepts. This way they make less mistakes and they better know the purpose of that parameter. So, and one more thing before we end our talk about functions, and these are not very crucial, especially the last one that I'm talking about, but it's very good to know, is adding a comment to the body of your function like this. And as you might guess, we need to respect the indent for them as well, for the comments as well. So I indented to the right, and then I add an explanation, says hello to the given to name. And as you can see, I put the name of the parameter inside backticks, and this allows me to see this as a part of code when I'm using it in another file or in another part of this script. In order to see this documentation and see how it helps you, all you need to do in this IDE, for example, is hover your mouse on the name of the function, say hello, and you can see that the documentation is shown to us, says hello to name. Beautiful, isn't it? And also it shows you the parameter and the type of the parameter. The parameter name is name and the type is str that it accepts. And since we don't return anything, Python assumes that we return none, which means we don't return anything. But for the other one, myfunc2, Python interpreter intelligently knows that we return a string. So if I hover my mouse over myfunc2, you see that it returns a literal, a string literal, in fact. If I put that in a string variable like this, st for example, and then return st, Python would interpret the signature of this function as returning str. Actually, no, it's not, because it knows that already this is a literal and we don't do anything special about it. Maybe if we added a little bit of change like this, then it would tell us that we return str. It's not very important, in fact. All right, return this. So basically that's how you define functions. You learned in this module how to create a function, how to define a function in Python, pass in some parameters to it, define the parameter list for your function, return something from a function, or just return none or don't return anything. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson. In the next week, in the upcoming week, probably we're going to talk about modules, because it's very important topic, and as a Python developer you need to know about it. But I will notify you about it, and maybe I choose another topic. All of them are important and you need to know about them. Before we wrap up this lesson, actually, today's podcast, I'm going to touch on some recent events of the last week, which were important in my opinion, and you would like to know about them. One of them was Telegram's event of reaching about 500 million users, and this is a very huge thing, you know. Telegram started in 2013, and soon after that, because of its design, because of its focus on security, a lot of users, in fact, on security and privacy, a lot of users were attracted to them, to this platform, and started using it. It added gradually a lot of features, and the user base for the platform grew and grew and grew. And last year it reached 400 million, and now it's reaching 500 million. For all these years, for 7 years, Telegram has worked completely freely. So it has not monetized its platform at all so far. And as Durov, the CEO of Telegram and also its co-founder, said, he has been paying all the expenses for this project from his own savings so far, all these 7 years. But now, because of its growing costs, and since the project is really huge now, they have decided to monetize it, and they announced it. Durov himself, in his own personal channel, announced this last week, I think, that he said we are going to monetize it by introducing our own advertising platform. So I think it's going to be some kind of advertising, some special type of banners or something, because we haven't seen it yet. We cannot visualize it very well, but we can guess that it's something like YouTube advertising or something like that, or like the proxy advertisings that are already in place for people, for proxy providers. Something that is shown on the top of the channel, and it's going to be distinguished from the content of the channel, so that people would know that this is some advertising that is displayed to them. So this was something that got my interest over the last week. And another thing I wanted to touch on, let me switch to the image of this ZomCast, was the growing, a lot of surges and changes in the Bitcoin market and in general cryptocurrencies. As you might know, Bitcoin continued growing, and as of today, December 25 of 2020, Bitcoin is over 24,000, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't check it very lately. Bitcoin price, 1 BTC to USD. If you do it on Google, if you do 24 and 150,000. Great. Sorry, 24,000 and 150 US dollars. This is huge. A lot of changes over the last just 3 months. It grew from something like 16,000 to 24,000. And another bad news for Ripple owners, and as you might know, Ripple or XRP is a quite popular cryptocurrency that is the third most popular cryptocurrency, as some people say it is. It dropped significantly, and this sudden drop that was over 50% of the reduction in its price was mainly because of its lawsuit that was uh, created in the US against the CEO of this company over some legal issues. And uh, basically they claimed that the CEO of this company and the company policy has done something wrong in terms of its investment, and I think something related to taxes or things like that. So the bottom line is that it dramatically affected the cryptocurrency market, and especially the XRP, because a lot of people panicked and started selling their cryptocurrency, their XRP or their ripples. But I suspect that it's going to be fixed and it's going to be rippled back, something that some people call it ripple effect, and it's going to be bounced back and ripples, as you might know. And if you search it now, the price is going back to its previous values. And although it was about 25 cents yesterday, and it's low in its lowest amount over these days, now it's increasing again to more than 35%, and it's a good increase, in fact, more than 30% increase. So hopefully you find this ZomCast 18 useful. Please give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel. I will post new tutorials, and next week we will continue our Python tutorial with new topics. And stay safe. See you.